There is a side of women the world rarely talks about, a hidden psychology wrapped in gentle smiles, soft laughter, and innocent glances. A secret so carefully disguised that if you try to call it out, it will be denied instantly. And yet, once you see it, once your eyes are truly opened, you will never look at women or at desire itself the same way again. This is not about hatred. This is not about blame. It is about power, where it lies, how it shifts, and why for centuries men have been misled about what truly fuels attraction. Because here's the forbidden truth. Real power has never belonged to the man who gives the most, but to the man who refuses to kneel. Imagine this. You're sitting across from a woman. She smiles at you, tilts her head slightly, lowers her voice into something soft and almost melodic. You feel warm, important, even admired. But what if I told you that smile may not mean what you think it means? That her softness may not be softness at all, but a weapon. Since the dawn of history, men held the advantage of strength, physical power, dominance in war, control over resources. And when you cannot win with raw force, what weapon remains? Strategy. And the most sophisticated strategy of all is the mask. Every woman wears one, not because she is evil, not because she is addicted to lies, but because the mask is survival. Her smile might not be happiness, it could be calculation. Her laughter might not be amusement, it could be distraction. Her tears might not be despair, they might be signals designed to awaken the protector instinct in you, to make you move exactly where she wants without you ever realizing. This is the art men were never taught to see. The mask is not one single face, it changes. Sometimes it is innocence, whispering, "I'd never hurt you." Sometimes it is admiration, saying, "You're the strongest man I've ever known." Sometimes it is sorrow, pulling on your heart until you feel compelled to protect. But here's the paradox. Even she is not always aware she wears the mask. Sometimes she convinces herself it's real. Sometimes the mask becomes so natural, it fuses with her identity. And that is what makes it powerful. It hides not only from you, but sometimes from her own reflection. Most men never see through it. They fall for the smile, the laugh, the softness, believing it is innocence, believing it is love. But the man who pierces the mask, the man who refuses to live inside her script, becomes the one thing she cannot rule. And here lies the forbidden truth. Her deepest desire is never what men are taught to believe. You've heard the story 1,000 times. Women want safety, comfort, a man who will always listen, always protect, always give. Movies repeat it, books repeat it, even women themselves will say it. But history and human nature tell a darker story. Desire does not come from safety. Desire is born from danger. Think about it. Comfort can calm her. Stability can soothe her. But peace does not set her pulse racing. Security does not keep her awake at night, replaying your words in her mind. Safety is what she settles for when she has no other choice. But desire only rises in the presence of a man she cannot completely control. Look back at the stories of kings, warriors, leaders, the men who carved their names into history. Were they safe men? No. They were unpredictable, unshakable, sometimes even ruthless. And yet women risked everything to be near them. Not because they offered comfort, but because they stirred something primal, something that safety alone could never touch. So ask yourself, are you the man who kneels, who gives endlessly, who explains, who pleads for her approval? Or are you the man who stands firm, who refuses to be shaken, who can walk away without hesitation? Because here is the secret Machiavelli whispered centuries ago. If you want loyalty, give her safety. But if you want desire, give her danger. And when you understand that, everything changes. The second chapter, the secret tests. Every woman tests you, not once, not twice, but endlessly. At first glance, these tests look random. An ignored message here, a sudden argument there, a strange question asked out of nowhere. But they are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are the invisible trials she places in front of you to measure what kind of man you truly are. Why does she test? Because words alone mean nothing to her. She has heard promises before. She has seen men swear loyalty, speak of strength, talk endlessly about love, only to crumble when pressure arrived. She does not trust what you say. She only trusts what you show. Picture this. You send her a message and she leaves it unanswered. Hours go by, maybe even days. Inside you, anxiety stirs. Did I do something wrong? Should I write again? Should I double text? That impulse to chase, to beg, to prove yourself, that is the very thing she is watching for. Or imagine she suddenly accuses you of something absurd. She says, "You don't care about me. You never listen." A storm in her eyes, her voice sharp, her emotions high. She doesn't even believe her own words fully. But she throws them anyway. Why? Not because she wants truth, but because she wants to see if you can remain calm when the storm rages. These are her secret weapons, her way of looking past your surface. Her tests are like fire that burns away the weak metal and reveals if there is any real gold underneath. But here's where most men fail. They take the tests personally, they feel insulted, they get defensive, they argue. They explain endlessly, hoping to convince her of their worth. And in doing so, they show her exactly what she wanted to know, whether you can be broken. And once she sees weakness, respect begins to fade. Slowly at first, almost invisibly, but like a candle burning low, it dies all the same. And when respect fades, desire soon follows. But what about the rare man? The man who passes the test? He does not pass by fighting. He does not pass by shouting louder. He does not pass by convincing her with endless explanations. He passes through silence, stillness, and strength. He is unshaken. When ignored, he does not beg. When accused, he does not collapse. When she lashes out, he remains calm, steady, and in control of himself. His silence is not weakness, it is a wall. His calmness is not passivity, it is power. And in that calm, she sees something rare. Respect grows, attraction deepens, because now she knows this is not just another man pretending. This is a man who cannot be moved like the rest. Understand this, her tests are not meant to destroy you, they are meant to measure you. Just as the blacksmith tests metal in fire, she tests your spirit in moments of chaos. If you bend too quickly, if you explain endlessly, if you show fear of losing her, she marks it deep in her heart. And though she may never say it aloud, something inside her withdraws. But if you stand firm, if you remain unmoved, then you have unlocked something very few men ever will, her respect. And respect, far more than affection, is the foundation of desire. This is the forbidden truth. A woman's attraction is tied not to how much you give, not to how much you say, but to how much strength you hold when tested. And this is why so many men fail without ever knowing why. They think they lost her because they didn't give enough flowers, enough gifts, enough words. But in reality, they lost her because they failed her unspoken tests. They showed weakness where she longed to see strength. Machiavelli would remind us, power is not proven in times of peace, but in times of challenge. With women, the challenge never ends. And this is not cruelty, it is nature. She tests because deep down, she needs to know that the man beside her will not collapse when storms rise, that he will not crumble when life pushes against him. So remember this, the next time silence comes, the next time chaos strikes, the next time you feel the fire of her test, you are standing at a crossroads. Fail, and you become forgettable. Pass, and you become unforgettable. The man she cannot move, the man she cannot break. The man who lingers in her memory long after others fade away. That is the power of passing her tests. That is the power of the man who remains unshaken. The third chapter, the silent power of distance. Most men lose their value without even realizing it. They believe that love means constant attention, so they smother her with calls, texts, long messages, surprise visits, gifts, and endless availability. They cancel their own plans just to make room for hers. They believe this is proof of loyalty, proof of devotion. But here lies the harsh truth. The more you give, the less it is worth. Human desire is a strange paradox. We do not crave what is always in our hands. We crave what feels rare, uncertain, just out of reach. And when something is always there, always available, always ready, its value quietly disappears. This law is not only true in love, it is true with art, with wealth, with power. Gold is valuable because it is rare. A masterpiece is priceless because it cannot be copied. And in the same way, a man's presence loses its weight when it is endless. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that people, men and women alike, desire most what they cannot fully hold. Absence creates hunger. Silence creates unease. Distance creates desire. Picture a flame. Fire cannot survive if you smother it with too much fuel, too much weight, too much closeness. It suffocates. But if you give the fire just the right balance of fuel and air, it grows stronger, brighter, more alive. Desire is no different. Too much presence kills it. The right amount of distance keeps it burning. Here lies the forbidden truth. Women may ask for constant attention, but when you give it endlessly, desire fades. She may thank you for it. She may even use it. But deep down, her instincts know what is always there becomes invisible. The wise man understands this. He does not rush to reply to every message. He does not rearrange his entire life to orbit around her. He does not fear distance because he knows that space is not his enemy. Space is his greatest ally. When you are silent, she wonders where you are. When you are absent, she feels your presence even more. When you step back, her mind runs forward, searching for you. And here's the paradox. The less you give of yourself, the more valuable your presence becomes. Because your attention is not endless. It has weight. It has scarcity. It carries meaning. Most men fear this. They think distance will make her forget. But the opposite is true. Distance makes her remember. Distance sharpens your image in her mind. Distance makes her chase. A woman cannot pursue the man who is already in her hands, but she will always pursue the man she cannot fully grasp. This is why absence is not weakness, it is power. The man who understands when to give and when to hold back is the man who never fades in her eyes. He makes her chase, not because he plays cruel games, but because his life is already full, already rich, already too strong to orbit around her every breath. Think of it this way. A king does not run after his subjects. A mountain does not bend toward the wind. Their presence is powerful because it is not desperate. And in the same way, your presence becomes powerful when it is not constant. But let's be clear, this is not about coldness. It is not about cruelty. It is not about ignoring her for sport. It is about balance. It is about understanding that attention is not love. Attention is currency. Spend it carelessly, and it becomes worthless. Guard it with strength, and it becomes priceless. And once you see this truth, you stop giving yourself away so cheaply. You stop drowning her in your presence. You stop suffocating the fire of desire with too much fuel. Instead, you master the art of space. You allow silence to speak for you. You allow absence to build her hunger. You allow distance to pull her closer than endless presence ever could. This is the silent power of distance. The paradox she may never admit, but always feels. The truth she cannot escape. The man she cannot fully have is the man she will always want the most. The chapter 4th, the fear she can't escape. Most men think a woman's greatest fear is being unloved. That if she loses affection, she breaks. That if she's abandoned, she crumbles. But that is not the truth. Her deepest fear is not the absence of love. It is the absence of being seen. Love is everywhere. She can find men who will love her beauty. Men who will write her poems, flood her with messages, shower her with gifts. She can find men who admire, men who protect, men who follow her endlessly. Love is not rare. Attention is not rare. But being truly seen, being recognized in a way that pierces through her mask, a gaze that makes her feel like she cannot hide, that is rare. And because it is rare, it is what she craves most. And because she craves it, she fears losing it. Think about this. Being ignored by a man she doesn't care about means nothing. She shrugs it off. It barely touches her. But being ignored by the man she cannot control, that wound cuts deeper than rejection. It shakes her sense of power. It whispers to her that maybe she is not as irresistible as she thought. It forces her to question her worth in silence, though she will never admit it aloud. This is why your silence has power. This is why your calmness unsettles her more than any argument. Because when her storms cannot move you, she feels something terrifying. She feels invisible. Most men cannot hold this frame. When she lashes out, they rush to comfort. When she accuses, they rush to explain. When she pulls away, they chase after her. Without realizing it, they hand her all the control. They give her the certainty that her emotions are stronger than his foundation. But the rare man, the man who cannot be bent, remains unshaken. He does not rush. He does not beg. He does not crumble when she creates distance. He stands as if carved from stone. And in that stillness, she feels it. Her strongest weapon, her emotions, bounce back without effect. For the first time, her storms do not rule the skies, and that terrifies her. But it also awakens her desire. Understand this: when you are unmoved by her chaos, she has no choice but to return to calm. When you refuse to be dragged into her storm, she feels smaller against your silence. And that silence draws her closer, because she cannot accept being unseen by the man she desires most. This is the forbidden truth. Your attention is her oxygen. Without it, her control weakens. And the more she struggles to regain it, the more she invests in you. The more invisible you make her feel in her moments of manipulation, the more she burns to be seen again. But here is where most men destroy themselves. They think they are proving love by flooding her with constant attention. They think if they just say enough, give enough, show enough, she will stay. But what they don't see is that every ounce of excessive attention lowers its value. What is endless becomes cheap. The man who masters balance is so ours. The man who knows when to give and when to step back does not weaken her desire, he strengthens it. His silence becomes louder than any other man's words. His distance becomes sharper than any other man's closeness. His presence carries weight, and when she feels unseen by him, she does not walk away. She chases harder, not because he ignores her completely, but because his attention is no longer a free gift. It is a rare jewel, one she must earn. This is why invisibility is her deepest fear, not betrayal, not abandonment, but to fade from the eyes of the one man she cannot control. And when you master this, when your frame remains unbroken, when you hold your silence with strength, you flip the script. The chase no longer belongs to you, it belongs to her. Because now, every smile you give has weight, every glance carries fire, every word you speak feels like gold. Why? Because it is no longer constant, it is no longer cheap, it is rare, it is powerful. This is the law most men never see. Women are not bound by love alone, they are bound by the fear of invisibility. And when you understand this, you no longer beg for attention. You become the man whose attention she fears losing. And that is why silence, distance, and strength are not just strategies. They are weapons. Weapons that do not destroy her, but awaken her deepest craving, to be seen by the man who cannot be moved. The chapter 5th, the game she hopes you never see. If men truly understood the hidden psychology of women, the balance of power between the sexes would shift forever. Because here's the truth. What most men believe to be random emotions, sudden mood swings, or natural innocence is often something else entirely. Not chaos, not coincidence, but strategy. For centuries, mystery has been a woman's sharpest weapon. When you cannot read her feelings, when you cannot predict her moves, when her smile might mean love or might mean calculation, you begin to fill in the blanks yourself. You convince yourself she is softer than she really is. You tell yourself her laughter means joy, her gentleness means devotion, her silence means purity, but often it is only a mask. And this is the cruel beauty of the game. When you cannot see behind the mask, you project your own desires onto it. You become blind, not because she forced you, but because you wanted to believe. How many men have mistaken a smile for love? How many men have mistaken a tear for truth? How many men have mistaken a gentle touch for surrender, when in reality, it was strategy? And once you take those illusions as reality, you are trapped inside her script, giving more, chasing harder, bending endlessly, while she measures, tests, and decides if you are enough. This is the forbidden truth women never want men to uncover. Much of what you think is natural emotion is deliberate performance. Not every laugh is joy. Not every storm is real chaos. Many are tests, many are tools. And once you recognize this, once you see through the illusion, the spell begins to break. Think about it. How often does she go silent? Not because she has nothing to say, but because silence makes you insecure? How often does she withdraw her attention? Not because she is done with you, but because it forces you to chase harder. How often does she stir an argument? Not because she believes in it, but because she wants to see if you will lose your frame. This is the game. Men give, women measure. Men reveal their hearts, women guard theirs. Men sacrifice, women decide if it is enough. And most men play without ever realizing the rules. But once you see it, once you look behind the curtain, the game changes. No longer does every storm shake you. No longer does every silence scare you. No longer does every mask fool you. You begin to see her as she is, not only her beauty, but also her strategy. This does not mean women are evil, far from it. It means they are strategic. They use what power they have: emotion, mystery, attention, the same way rulers once used armies. And just as in war, the one who hides their true plan often wins. Machiavelli himself warned, appearances will always be used as weapons, and those who cannot see beyond appearances will always be ruled by them. Most men stay blind. They live and die inside illusions. They spend years chasing shadows, never realizing the truth. But you, if you are here listening, understanding, then you are not like most men. You are beginning to see behind the mask. And once you see, you cannot unsee. That alone changes everything. Because the moment you recognize the game loses its power. You stop collapsing at every tear. You stop chasing at every silence. You stop begging at every test. Instead, you remain still. You remain clear. You remain strong. And that is the man she cannot rule. That is the man she cannot forget. Because once you see the shadow behind the smile, once you see that softness and storms alike are often performances, you no longer react like the others. You no longer bend to the illusion. And in that moment, you gain something far greater than control over her. You gain control over yourself. That is the power she never wanted you to discover, the power of seeing the game. The chapter 6th, the last law that makes you untouchable. Every man seeks love. Every man seeks loyalty. But most men lose both because they break the final law of power. They give too much, too fast, with no boundaries. They open their hearts completely. They hand over their souls, they abandon their goals, and they believe this sacrifice will buy them security, but it never does. Because here is the last law. Never be fully predictable, never give everything away. Predictability kills desire. When she knows exactly what you will do, when she can predict every response, when she is certain that no matter what storm she stirs, you will always stay, always forgive, always give, her respect fades. You become safe, yes, but safety is not attraction. Safety is not desire. Instead, you must become the man who cannot be fully read, not by lying, not by pretending, but by living in a way that is whole and unshakable, where your life, your purpose, your depth cannot be commanded by her emotions. A man who keeps his silence, a man who keeps his mystery, a man who remains kind, but never weak. Because weakness is not kindness. Weakness is when kindness is used against you. Weakness is when you give without value, when you bend only to be liked, when you love by erasing yourself. Real kindness is different. Real kindness is strength under control. It is giving because you choose to, not because you fear losing her. It is loving without being enslaved. Be present, but never desperate. Presence is strength. Desperation is decay. Desperation is when you abandon yourself just to win her. Presence is when you stand grounded, giving her focus, but remaining whole with or without her. Show love, but never lose yourself. Because if your love requires you to kneel, to silence your truth, to abandon your mission, it is not love. It is slavery. And here is the secret. The man who refuses to kneel, the man who lives with depth but cannot be bent, becomes unforgettable, not because he is cruel, not because he is perfect, but because he is rare. He is the man who does not crumble when tested, the man who does not break when faced with silence, the man who does not beg for attention, the man who loves with fire but stands with stone. This is the highest form of control, not control over her, but control over yourself. Because the man who rules himself cannot be ruled by anyone else. Understand this. Women do not truly want a man who hates them. They want a man who cannot be bent, a man who can love them deeply, but still stand unshaken when storms rise, a man who refuses to lose his center. That is why the man who follows this law does not just earn respect, he creates desire. He becomes the one she cannot forget, the one she measures every other man against. The one who lingers in her thoughts, not because of gifts, not because of words, but because of his unshakable frame. And this is what makes you untouchable. Not cold, not cruel, not bitter, but whole, solid, balanced. A man who does not collapse under illusions, who does not drown in endless giving, who does not live inside the script she writes. You see the mask for what it is. You understand her tests for what they are. You master the art of distance. You recognize her fear of invisibility. You see the game without being consumed by it. And finally, You live by the law of unpredictability, never giving all, never bending fully, never abandoning yourself. That is what separates you from the countless men who give away their power. That is what makes you the rare man she cannot control, cannot forget, and cannot replace. Now you know the forbidden psychology, the truths they never wanted revealed. And once you know, you cannot return to blindness. The question is simple. Will you remain like the rest, chasing illusions, drowning her in gifts, begging for affection, or will you rise as the man who cannot be bent? Because desire is never innocent, and power always belongs to the man who refuses to kneel.